Hello, guys. Welcome back to my world of Instagram conversations. How is everyone? Guys, I'm just getting stupid. Sorry, I just had to set my hair up. Sorry. Uh, there we go. I hope you all having a fantastic weekend. Everybody's fine. Everybody's safe. Like always, I am back with another guest, with another conversation to learn, to educate, to spread awareness. Mm, I am all set. Excuse me, to bring in my guest and have a lovely conversation with them. Just a second, guys. Just let me connect with them and let me bring them. Set.
Hey,
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How you going?
Good, good. Um, Before we start, I just wanted you to just do a self introduction for the audience and we'll take it from there.
All right. Well, my name's Pharrell, and I run the Connected by Stories podcast. And yeah, I'm from Australia, and basically, I talk to people all around the world and just let them share their stories.
All right. So, Farrell, let's talk about your website. I know that you bring in people of abuse and they speak on their stories. Such a journey.
Sorry, you're breaking up a little bit. Can you repeat that?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're just breaking up a little bit. Can you repeat it?
Okay. Am I breaking now or is it fine?
No, you're good. You're fine.
Okay. So I just wanted to know what inspired you to talk to people and to learn about their stories. What led you to that?
So, for me, I think there were a few different factors. So, one was personal experience. So, I grew up in an abusive family. So I had experienced it myself, and I had also seen my mom, go through the same thing. And so there was that part of it, which made me I was wanted to do something to help other people in that situation. Because for me, I knew like one of the things that did help me was talking to other people who had been in the same situation, or just like hearing someone else tell their stories. Like that was always like really helpful. So that was something that I decided like, okay, I wanted to do something around that. And then also just talking to friends and, having those conversations and people usually telling me about like, abusive situations that they had been in. And it just became something that was very common. Like
Mm.
a lot of people had actually been through certain abusive situations. So I decided like I was going to, start a podcast and just, yeah, get people to just share their stories because it's very helpful. It's very freeing, once you're able to like just talk about it with someone else, just get it off your chest. It's usually very helpful. So that was the start of the podcast.
Yes, yes, most definitely. And what you're doing is amazing, and I congratulate you. It's something really brave. And I myself bring on people who are survivors, and they talk about their stories. And it's inspiring to see how much a person can go through and still grow and be
Exactly.
willing to give love and happiness, and at the same time how much a person can endure. So you learn so much through survivor stories, and makes you also feel grateful in ways that, look, you didn't go through it and look at what that person has gone through. So let's talk about your survivor stories. What are they around, and what do you learn from these stories that you have with survivors?
So with the stories, I centered it around just abuse in general, like all the different types of abuse. So not necessarily like just domestic violence or just the physical or the emotional stuff. Basically, any kind of abuse that people have gone through, and just from talking to these people, like you said, a lot of people have been through like some really intense stuff. There are certain situations that people have been through where you're just like, wow, how did you go through that and still come out on top? And like you came out and you still somehow managed to give love back. You still managed to lead a regular life. It's very like it puts a lot of things into perspective. And for me, I guess just being able to like listen to those stories and listen to these people share those stories, it's very like inspiring to me. You
Mhm.
know, it's very, very inspiring. And also knowing that at the end of all of this, they still, they were able to find hope. They were able to like come out of it. It's just, yeah, it's great.
Right, right, right. And you also said that you went through it yourself,
Yeah.
and it motivated you to do this. First of all, that's amazing. That makes you so amazing to be able to put your pain aside and wanting to not just listen to people and help them, and giving them that platform that where they can come and share with you their stories. Uh, if you're comfortable, of course, would you want to talk a little more about what you went through?
Yeah, I guess I can talk a little bit about it. So for me, um, so growing up, like I grew up in a house with a narcissist. So my dad was, yeah, he was very abusive in terms of like emotionally, physically, and everything. So as a kid, back then I didn't even know like what narcissism was. I didn't know that there was a word for it. I didn't know any of that stuff. So for me, going through all of that, I went through it by myself because I didn't really have anyone I could talk to about that stuff. There was no one around me who understood, the same things. So it was just like I figured it out as I went along. It
Mm-hmm.
wasn't until I was like, older, I think I was 19, 20, when I first realized that, hey, other people go through the same thing. That was when it was actually through Reddit. Like I found a subreddit on there called Raised by Narcissist. And there were some stories on there where I was just like, that sounds exactly like what I've been through. So that was, I guess, for me, when I realized like other people were going through the same things. But yeah, it was just that whole emotional abuse, the physical abuse, growing up. And then my mom also, I got to like, see her go through the same physical abuse, emotional abuse, financial abuse. There were periods where like they'd start fighting and my mom would like basically like, grab myself and my little sister and, would take us to like the neighbor's house or like a family friends, leave us there and then go back to go, sort out everything. So it was just like that was something that was very common during my childhood. And like those for a child, those things kind of like, this car you they, there's a lot of effects from all of that.
Mm-hmm. Wow, wow. I'm so sorry to hear that. And like you said, I've had tons of survivors come in and say the same thing, that they didn't know anything about narcissism, or even if that term existed, and not because they went through it and then they met people who started to speak their stories, they realized, oh, that's similar to what I've been through, and then they started to search it up. And it's the same for me. I went online and I googled verbal abuse, and the first thing that came was narcissism, and I was like, I've
Oh
never
wow.
even heard that word. What is that? So I just clicked on it out of curiosity, and I read, and then oh my god, there were tons of videos and tons of information out there, and it was mind boggling, because I was like, oh my gosh, it's such a big blown thing and we don't even know about it. And I was really like, oh my gosh, I really need to educate myself on that. So that's how I learned about narcissism. um, and I'm sorry to hear that for you and your sister, and I'm glad that you guys are in a better place now. uh, let's talk more about the stories that you'd heard from people. What have you learned? What kind of patterns have you seen? And do you think that abuse is become a global pandemic kind of thing nowadays?
It's definitely global. Like it's definitely global. I think it has been like for a while, but
Mm,
now a lot more people are talking about it. So
mm.
we're now starting to hear a lot more of these stories.
More
But
awareness. Mm,
yeah. But in terms of patterns and things that I have seen, so basically whenever I talk to survivors, I usually like to like start the conversation from their childhood. I want
mm,
to know what environment did you grow up in? How was your childhood? What was your relationship with your parents and all of that? And one thing I have found is that there have been like, quite a few who have, grew up in lovely homes, but usually it starts from your childhood. So usually around like certain environments, probably like parental abuse. And then based on that, it influences, the choices of partners that you end up with. And then it just the cycle basically continues. So that's I guess one pattern that I have seen in terms of abuse. Another one that I have seen, which is I guess similar to a lot of people who have been through abuse, is that whole, getting out of one situation and then finding someone else who exhibits the same traits and just continuing that. So that's those I think those are the two main patterns.
Wow, wow. And that's so correct. I think that what happens is that when somebody is in an abusive relationship or in toxic relationship and they realize they are and they back out, what happens is that they don't realize that now they need to stop, reflect, work on
Mm-hmm.
themselves, understand why they ended up in that relationship and heal from it. Since they don't heal from it, they're trauma bonded, they end up choosing another abusive partner, slightly different from the first one, but it's the same pattern. And that's what I've seen, that in any situation, I think that if you've been through any kind of trauma or anything that's wounded you deeply, uh, I think one should always stop, reflect, and heal from it. It's just like if you get a cut, if you're not going to aid it properly, it's going to keep on bleeding. So I
Mm-hmm.
think it's kind of like that we need people to understand that healing is important. And if you do not heal yourself, you're just going to be in a cycle of where you're unhappy.
Yeah, yeah,
And
definitely right.
right,
Yeah,
right.
definitely. It's yeah, because you then find out that as soon as once they realize that, and they then decide to like take that time, reflect. That's when the healing process starts, and then they can finally go through all of that, deal with the trauma that they did have, and then things start to change. But before all of that, it's yeah, like you said, trauma bonding. You just end up in the same situations with like slight differences.
Right, right, right. And I feel that, and I was talking to somebody yesterday, and that was something I learned, and I want to share it with you as well, is that she said, and that made so much sense, that we're all toxic in some ways. We're all
Mm.
toxic. The point is that are we willing to see and understand how toxic we are, and then not just that, and see how we can work towards not being toxic. Because you see, I'll tell you, I can speak from my experience, and I was brought up in a society, in a culture which is highly toxic, in the sense that men can get away with anything and everything. They're not accountable. They can beat up a woman, they can say whatever they want, and the culture goes, men are like that, suck it up, or women need to be more compassionate, and stuff like that.
Yeah,
And I think because of that, uh, women have suffered tremendously in my society, and I did not realize that up till like last year. And I was like, oh my gosh, I live in a toxic society. And then when I saw my pattern, I was like, oh shit, I'm so toxic myself. I can identify the other people are toxic, but I
yeah,
couldn't identify that I was maybe worse than them. So I really had to like stop and see why I was the way I was. What I could see in others was wrong, then why couldn't I see that in myself? And then I realized that it was the kind of environment that was around me that conditioned me in my subconscious mind to accept it. So
mm-hmm.
while I could see others doing it, I couldn't realize that I myself was doing it too. So I think if people could really understand and relate that, yeah, we're toxic, but to what level are we toxic? Because sometimes what happens is, and I really hate that word when somebody calls you, oh, you're being so sensitive, or you're overreacting. You see, I could say something to you, because for me that wouldn't be like I'm sounding sensitive, but for you it might be. So when you say, hey, I'm sensitive, let's not talk about it, I don't think so I need to be rude towards you, or a snap at you for that,
Yeah,
but to show empathy towards you, like, okay, for me, okay, it's okay, but for this person, that's like crossing a boundary,
yeah,
and try to invalidate them. So if as humans and if in relationships we can really do that, I think we could definitely bring the abuse and the toxic cycle that's going around the globe a much lower. um,
Yeah.
right, you agree with me?
Yeah, you're definitely right. Like similar to you as well. Like I was born in Nigeria, so
Okay.
like the first 12 years of my life I spent over there, and it's a similar culture where, culturally, men do tend to get away with a lot of things, and
Mm,
so, things like abuse and all of that. Well, back then it wasn't really spoken about. So it was
mm,
just like, when men do like, hit their wives, for example, it's basically just, it's just another thing. It's another thing that comes with marriage. It's just men, that's what they do, sort of thing.
yeah.
So no one like really spoke about it. No one really there wasn't that education on it. Now
Mm,
like a lot more people are starting to speak on it. So it's like, there's a little bit of a shift.
mm,
Hopefully like, the shift continues. But yeah, back then there was really nothing. So yeah, I do definitely agree with you in terms of, you know, one, that education, once it's there, people can
mm.
start realizing the things around them, but then at the same time also realizing that toxic nature in yourself.
Mm.
Because the more self-aware we are, the better things will be.
Yes, yes, yes. And I think that not just that, I think people use religion as also as a
Definitely,
big
yes.
controlling uh, way. It's a manipulative kind of way, because I've seen, I'm a Muslim, so I've seen that men in our society use religion and say, God made us superior to you women, so we can do that. God didn't make you superior. I don't, that's my personal understanding. Men were not made superior. Men and women are equal, but men are placed higher in some things than women, and women are placed higher than men in some places. So I think, as far as God is concerned, we're all equal. And this
Yeah,
power game to manipulate and control women and tell them that, oh, you are a we are a superior being, has just been blown out of proportion for decades. And like you said, because of having so much awareness, people have really started to understand that religion has got nothing to do with that.
yeah.
God did not say that anywhere. Do you feel that kind of thing as well as where you are right now and from back home as well?
Yeah, I think like religion is definitely, especially when you're talking like cultural, like religion is definitely like it plays a big part. Like you
Mm,
said, a lot of people tend to do this thing where they pick and choose different parts of, whatever religious book that they follow, just to like,
mm,
make whatever points it is they want to make. So they ignore everything else and just pick specific parts that sound like, that could be interpreted in a different way to like, make the point that they want to make. But once,
mm,
yeah, but yeah, I definitely agree. Once you get to the bottom of it, one, religion doesn't really say any of that. And
mm,
secondly, it's basically just, it's an excuse a lot of the time. But
mm.
yeah, religion is definitely, it plays a really big part in, the whole, in like a lot of cultures where men, they think they can get away with certain things and it's acceptable just because it's part of the religion.
Makes sense. Okay, then let's talk more about your podcast. So what is it like? Is it like, do you have like live streams, or is it audio? And are the survivors coming forward, letting you know and the audience their name, or what kind of conversations do you have at your end?
Yeah, so how it works is with the podcast, it's audio, so it's available basically anywhere, you get podcasts, so Spotify, Apple and all of those. And it's basically just a conversation. Like I try to, make it less about me and more about the person I'm talking to. So the like if I was able to not speak at all, I wouldn't, but then it wouldn't be a conversation. So I try to
Mm,
like keep what I do very like minimal so that they have the chance to just tell their story and it's coming from them and they have that platform to just speak and lend their voices. So I
mm,
yeah I basically just have a chat with them, talk about things from like like I said before, their childhood, how they grew up, their like their abusive situations, how they met these people, when things changed, and
mm,
also just talk about like the whole healing process as well as you know any advice that they have for other people. Because one of the main things that I want to achieve with the podcast is to just let other people who are in that situation or who have been in that situation, just let them know that they're not alone and they don't have to go through that alone. So I tend to ask those questions when I do talk to survivors, just so anyone else listening can, get something out of it and can, be like, okay, hey, if this person is being true to this person, then I can also, I can also get out of it. There's hope, there's light at the end of the tunnel sort of thing. And in terms of people who I do talk to, most of the people I do talk to come message me, or they use the website and just hit me up to say hey, I want to I'd like to share my story sort of thing. But when I first started, I had to actually reach out to certain people. But luckily, it was something that a lot of people found helpful. So as soon as I got it rolling, people started actually messaging me to and just have a conversation and just share their story and share their experiences as well.
Wow, wow. And it's amazing to hear that when you started, there were so many people out there who wanted to come forward and share their story, where they could find that support, and that goes such a long way for the survivors, right?
Definitely,
So,
definitely, and yeah.
right, right. So tell me, when you hear survivors' stories, does do you feel that your a part of you also heals and strengthens and gives you that kind of feeling that, oh, I'm not alone who went through that kind of abuse?
Yeah, so I did mention before that even when I went through this, I didn't really have anyone to talk to. I didn't know a lot about this stuff, so I just had to figure it out as I went along. And one of the things that did help me was finding other people and just hearing their stories. So every time I do talk to these people, sometimes it can be really heavy, heavy stuff. But it's one of those things that causes you to once it's all done, actually reflect and also think about your situation, think about the things that you've been through. And yeah, it's just just hearing those stories, it's always going to be it makes you take a deep dive into yourself, and definitely helps you heal if you're still going through your healing process. It's one of those things that's just okay, cool, I'm not the only one going through this. There are other people out there who actually understand what I'm going through, and there are other people out there who have actually been through the same thing. And yeah, it's just just gives you that hope, gives you something to cling on to.
Right, right, right. Well said. So, like you said, that you were 19 when you started to figure out that something's off, and you didn't know much about it. Talk more about how was your healing journey for you?
So for me, it was one of those things where so I always knew something was off. I always knew I wasn't crazy. I knew what was going on. I just didn't know exactly what it was. I didn't, like I said before, I didn't know what narcissism was. I didn't know there was a name for it. I didn't know any of that. I figured that out when I was about 19 years old. But in terms of healing for me, there was a point where, so as soon as I could, I moved out of home. As soon as I could, I basically moved cities to basically start start a new life basically. But so I guess for me that was the start of the healing journey, because I was I'd physically removed myself from that whole
The toxic
situation.
environment, right?
Exactly. But even then it was one of those things where sometimes you still have to be in a situation, because again, my mom, my sister, they're still within that. So just starting from that period on, once I did learn about this, just doing research and finding out about this, and understanding that all the feelings that I did have before, they were actually valid. Like I said, I wasn't crazy. I wasn't making things up. They were actually valid. So just knowing all of that, and that in itself was already very helpful. And then finding other people that went through this stuff, having conversations with other people that went through this stuff was, another level of healing for me. And then I think there was a point where for 2 years I did not I didn't see him, I didn't speak to him, nothing. It was just there was no
No
contact.
contact.
So that as well was pretty helpful. And then it got to a point where I was then able to actually confront everything that had gone on. I was actually able to like sit there and talk to him and like let him know like this, all this stuff that actually happened, just put it all out on the table. And I think for me that was actually the biggest part of my healing. Like that was the big, like just being able to like confront, because growing up that wasn't something I could do. Like I had to like bottle up all these things. It was constantly being bottled up and bottled up and bottled up. So just being able to just let it out and let him know how I felt about all of this was, yeah, I think for me that was the greatest part of everything, because once I let that go, it was like this weight had just been
Big.
lifted off my shoulder, and then everything just like it was just smooth sailing from there for me, like in terms of healing.
Wow, wow. And once you confronted him, well, I know how it is, but how did your father react to it, and what kind of response did you get?
So it was better than I thought it would be, but it was still I don't. It was one of those things where you still got the sense that okay, he's listening, but he still doesn't understand, like why it's wrong, or like there's still excuses for this and that, or like there was still certain excuses, but it was like, but for me it was more the fact that I was getting it off my chest. I was actually letting him know, because for me at that point in time it was basically, even if he doesn't accept it, that's not my problem. I
No
have
problem.
told you, like I have told you exactly how I feel. But luckily, it was something that he was like, okay, like I understand this, even though, like I said, you can sort of feel like there are certain parts of it where you obviously do not understand where I'm coming from, but still, at the end of the day, it was one of those things where okay, just apologized, and then sort of like now trying to figure out where to go to from there. But yeah, that was the response was better than I thought it would be.
Wow, wow, you're so amazing. That's really amazing. Well done. I feel proud listening to it. Um, what about your mom and sister? Especially your mom. What has she been through, and is she still in that still with him, or what?
Yeah, so with my mom, like I said before, like growing up, there was a point, where there was always fighting. There was emotional, financial, physical. But then all that kind of like got to a point where it wasn't happening as much. And then like now, in different countries, so it's not like technically not even possible, but like they're still together, like they're still married, and it's gotten to the point where like he now understands where like okay, these things I can't do these things anymore, especially considering myself and my sister we're grown now. So like when as kids we couldn't really do anything to stop her, but now that the situation's different. So he understands that, and he's understood it. And after I did the whole thing of like, no contact for like 2 years, he realized that we're at a point in our lives where we can all decide, you know what, you're on your own. And if it's basically myself, my sister, my mom, if everybody decided to do that, like we would be fine. We have each other. It would be just him. So I think he's going to a point where he understands that. So now he's like he he's checked himself, and it's basically like trying. None of that stuff is happening anymore.
Wow, wow. That's amazing. And to know for your mom, it must be so much of relief to have, the kids and have that support system that she's been through so much. And now she can finally breathe and not feel scared and be worried about you guys. That must be such an amazing feeling, right?
Definitely,
She's probably
definitely,
very proud of both of you, right?
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that it's phenomenal because I think that that's what we were talking again yesterday with my guest was that when you are in an abusive or a toxic environment, two things can happen. Either you become like them, exactly, because that's the only thing you've learned while growing, or you can be the exact opposite, like you, and be like, okay, this is not acceptable. And when
Yeah.
that things happen, amazing people like you and your sister emerge, and it's really, I think we need to celebrate more of you guys because it is amazing because being in that situation, that toxic situation, it can be really hard. And growing up and figuring it out on your own, it's phenomenal. And And I can't say it more and more that I feel so proud for you and your sister
Thank you.
for not just understanding and but also for stepping up for your mom, and then opening a window where people can come and talk about their stories. This, I mean, that shows that you guys have such a big heart, and you've learned so much and grown so much from that abuse, that you were able to disconnect everything negative and toxic from it and come forward being these amazing beings who are open to help people, to support them, to listen to them. So really, you guys are amazing. And I'm not, I
Thank you
don't
so
know your
much.
sister, so definitely tell her that uh truly big shout out to both of you.
Thank you.
uh so tell me, have, since you've listened to so many stories, uh have you ever and you just like you said yourself as well right now, was that there have been some heavy stories that you've
Mm.
come across? How do you process it for yourself, and what kind of support then you give the survivor then? Because I think it's a lot sometimes when people tell this, share their stories.
Yeah, so well, I'll start with like so with myself in terms of just processing it. One thing that I tend to do if I need to is just take a little bit of a break if I need to, and just just make sure like it's not something that like it's too much for me. Like it's not something that I cannot handle. So like with the stories, like I'm usually fine listening to them, and then if it's something that I thought was like particularly heavy, I'd probably like take like an hour just like disconnect from like everything, not really like doing too much because again, if you're like just if you just listen to something like that and then just jump straight into something else, it can basically like ruin your whole day. So I
Mm.
tend to like just disconnect. And also in terms of like survivors, um, even like besides just the ones that I do talk to on the podcast, I also have like people who send in their stories anonymously through the website, and I post those on my page as well. And I have
Mm.
people who just like message me and just have conversations because my inbox are always open. So people who
Mm.
just message me like just have a chat about like stuff that they've been through and things like that. And I always tend to in every time I release the episodes, I always have like different things that you can do, like who you people you can talk to, different services and things like that. And even when I do talk to like the guest, sometimes I ask of them because, like I said, my guests are from all over the world.
Liver.
So I tend to like just ask them in their area, like what are certain things that helps them, who are certain people that they spoke to, like things like that, so other people can like learn from that. And if it's something that is required, if something that they need, if it's like a resource that they think would be helpful for them, they can make use of that same thing as well.
Wow, wow. I had this woman. She came, I don't know, a few months back, and she was from UK. I think a small town. I've forgotten the place. And I asked the same thing. My things are just like yours. So I asked her, and I was like, okay, so you're from this area. Did you have any support system when you were healing, or when you got out of that? And she was like, oh, sadly, I didn't. Like proper professional kind of help, she said she didn't have. And I was like, oh my gosh, really? And she was like, yeah, I didn't have, but she said that she had a few very good friends and a few family members who were really supportive towards her, and she said that really helped me. So she didn't really miss out on that, but she said, yes, I could feel that people who get out of such situations and don't have any support system around it, it's hard for them. So I was really astonished to hear that oh wow, because when you look at developed countries, you think, oh, there's going to be help around all the time, but you do come across stories where they say that no, it's not like that. So you kind of learn through the process about
Yeah,
different
definitely.
countries as well.
Yeah, definitely. Like again, the whole thing about friends and family as well. I find like that's again been like the main support for most of the people I do talk to. Like there are professional help, there's other things, but there's always that friends and family around who can help, and that's usually been like the biggest support group that they tend to have. And even in terms of like there are some people who live in like big cities where they still find it hard to like get say professional help. Like I was
Mm.
talking to someone and they said again, with universities, for example, they always have like, the counselors and like
Mm,
therapists in there where you can go talk to them. But even then, it's hard to like help from those people because they find like, especially when you're from like, a different ethnic group or something like that, they don't tend to like understand things from a cultural perspective. So it's a bit like, it's hard to get help from someone who doesn't technically understand where you're coming from or certain things that have happened to you. So they try to like, because if they were going to help you, they would try to help you based on what they know, based on
mm,
the Western environment that they're in, compared to
mm,
the fact that, in certain homes, for example, in your culture, there might be certain things, that are acceptable or that people do
mm,
in like, in the household or things like that, that
mm.
someone else might not experience and that might contribute to your trauma or things like that. And when you then talk to
Definitely.
someone who doesn't have any experience with that, it's hard for them to help you.
Mm, mm. That's absolutely correct. And I've learned so much through these conversations, because I had this girl just recently, and she's from Turkey, and now I see Turkey very advanced. I mean, when I
Mm,
compare it with my country, Pakistan, I think it's very advanced. It's very ahead. And I've visited Turkey twice, and she came forward. She wanted to talk about her anxiety, and she's a young girl, around 18 or 19, and she says like. No, we don't have any help as far as mental health issues are concerned. I said, so you don't have counselors on in schools, and she said, no, we do have that. But when you go talk to them, there is no help because they
mm,
think that you're trying to seek attention or you have anger issues or stuff like that. So she said they don't know how to deal with you. So it just
yeah,
kind of puts you in more of a bottle, and you're like, where the hell am I going to go? So she said that one of her main reasons to make that page was to spread awareness and break that stigma and let people know that having anxiety or having depression and all that at a younger age was okay, and a lot of people go through that. So I was literally, seriously, I'm not lying, I was shocked because I did not ever think that Turkey would be that kind, because you see, you just know these places from online or from social media or from television, and you're like, oh, this country is probably very advanced and stuff like. So I was amazed to hear that, oh well. And most survivor stories, it's the same thing. It's either, even in developed countries, they say the therapist sometimes doesn't understand, or the therapist puts it on you that you're being unreasonable. So they say that they never truly, sometimes therapists don't understand is that verbal abuse is
mm,
really harmful, and they don't get that help from a therapist, and they have to actually find people who've been through the same thing, who become their support systems. So
yeah,
it's really sad to know that, that sometimes even medical help or professional help, sorry, cannot give you what you're
yeah.
approaching them for, reaching them out for. um what kind of message would you want to give to the audience who are listening to you right now, whether they're survivors, whether they're stuck in an abusive relationship or a toxic relationship or a narcissist relationship? What kind of message, I know it's a really broad question, but what kind of message would you want to give to
I
all of
think
those people?
so. For me, like the main message I've been trying to pass with the podcast and with everything is just the fact that you're not alone. So you don't have to go through this alone. Like it is, I know the feeling of trying to go through it alone. It's not a nice feeling. It's really horrible, especially like when you're not sure about what's going on, and then like sometimes you start to question yourself because you're like, am I overreacting? Is it really that
Mm,
deep? Am I thinking too much into this? Am I making things up? So it's just one of those things. Like I just want people to know that you're not alone. If you are in that situation, there is hope. Like you can come out of it. There are so many other people who are going through that and who have been through that. And all these people, like we're all here to help you in any way. We're all here to support you in any way that we can. Like you
mm,
do have to go through it alone. And hopefully you're not gonna go through it alone. And
mm,
yeah, just if you're in that situation, there just know that there is hope. There is always hope.
mm. Yes, definitely, definitely. Um, Thank you so much, first of all, for coming forward. And
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for sharing your story. For all of you who are listening, guys, the person sitting right in front of me is our hero because he's been through so much and his sister has been through so much. Yet they have come forward out of it amazingly and they have opened a platform to help, to listen, to support us. And that goes such a long way for all of you guys, because we need people like that. We need heroes like that who are there for us, who can support us, and putting their own trauma and putting their own pain aside for us goes a long way. So thank you so much. Thank you to all of you who were listening. On that note, we will say goodbye to each other. Take good care of yourself.
Thank you. You too. You take care of yourself.
Yeah, we will stay connected. And guys, like always, I will tag him after the story. So reach out to him, connect with him. He's got amazing content. Do check out his page. All right, guys, we are out. Take care. Bye-bye.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.